Seeing your face after such a long time, I'm reminded again of how unpleasant you are. At the 40-year reunion of our elementary school class, I was told this by Emily, a classmate known for her beauty but not her kindness. I don't want to hear that from you, I thought to myself, feeling strongly about it. And then Emily said something like this. Weren't you the one who couldn't get into college right after high school? Maybe you just have a high school diploma. I always thought you had no future prospects since our elementary school days, and it turns out I was right. You probably don't make much with just a high school diploma, and your family's poor too. How pitiful. With that kind of background, you'll probably never get married, let alone have a girlfriend. Your age probably equals your years without a girlfriend, right? Hit the nail on the head, didn't I? My husband, on the other hand, is a highly educated man working for a major corporation, a far cry from you. We've always lived in different worlds. My husband is about to become a manager, given his capabilities. He might even become the president in another 5 years. I couldn't help but admire how she could look down on someone and brag so freely. She could probably become moderately popular as a comedian if she turned her bragging into a gag. Although I thought of retorting, I decided it was more mature not to engage at the same level. At that moment, a classmate named Olivia, who was sitting next to me, asked, "What company does your husband work for?" Emily, pleased to be asked, happily responded, "Hannah, he works for Awesome Corporation. It's a very famous IT company nowadays. You must have heard of it." Olivia replied, "Yeah, I know it. It's a big company with about 8,000 employees. It's amazing he's becoming a manager there." Emily was a bit surprised and said, "That's right, Olivia, you're quite knowledgeable. But I don't think he'll become a manager." I interjected. Olivia nodded in agreement beside me. Emily frowned and said, What are you talking about? How rude. Are you just jealous? I'm starting to feel sorry for you. Just because you're undereducated and incompetent, you envy others' success." I replied, "No, I'm not jealous. I'm just stating facts. He won't become a manager, and what to do? Well, your husband will be in Brazil starting tomorrow." Emily was shocked and asked, "What?" We then revealed the shocking truth to her. My name is Kevin Turner. Though my parents were from the countryside, they moved to a redeveloped city in New York after getting married, where I was born and raised. Although it was a redeveloped city, our family lived in a small 2LDK apartment. There were tower block residents nearby, and even if not tower block residents, there were apartments where the relatively affluent lived, standing at least 10 stories high, making our small apartment stand out in the area. I went to the local public elementary school, and as a child, it felt normal, but looking back, it seemed like many families were more affluent than ours, even for a public school. Did everyone enjoy your summer break? Let's share your summer memories one by one. I think it was in the 5th grade. On the first day back at school after summer break, our teacher, Mr. Harrison, asked us to present our summer activities starting from the front row. One boy said, "My family went to Paris. My parents have been there several times, but it was my first. I saw the real Eiffel Tower." And a girl said, "My family goes to our Hampton Beach house every summer. We went this year too, but I also wanted to travel abroad. So they took me to Bali. It was fun playing in the sea and eating delicious food. Their world was one where overseas trips and owning vacation homes were the norm. I went to my grandparents' house in Connecticut. I had fun swimming in the sea." I said, "It was a tradition to visit my maternal grandparents' house every year, and it was enjoyable because the sea was close by." However, after hearing my presentation, a female classmate commented, "Ow, swimming in the sea in Connecticut. Can you even swim there? I've only been in the sea in Hawaii and Guam, so I don't know. It sounds like something poor people would do." Emily Parker. She was the type of girl who always wanted to boast about being wealthy. Despite being a beautiful girl with good looks and figure, her personality was a problem. She would boast about living on the upper floors of a tower block residence, her parents driving a Mercedes, owning branded items, and always looking down on others. If she only boasted, it might still be somewhat cute, but she demeaned others. I thought to myself, here we go again, and responded coolly, feeling indifferent. That's not true. Walnut Beach is beautiful, and the seafood is delicious. It's convenient since it's a short trip from New York, so I highly recommend it. Some classmates showed interest and said, "Oh, really?" or "I've been there too," and the conversation became lively. Emily didn't look pleased. "I've been to the sea in Connecticut too. It's convenient and close by, and the food is delicious. Kevin, your relative's place must be nice. I'm jealous." Mr. Harrison said that, calming the excited class. Then it was Emily's turn to present. "I went on a trip in Europe, from England to France, then Germany, and finally Italy. The authentic Italian cuisine was the best. I spent almost the entire summer outside the U.S." She said this with a triumphant look. "I also saved up from my part-time job when I was a student and went on a trip to Italy. The food is delicious there, isn't it? I'd love to go again." Mr. Harrison wrapped up the session with that remark. Just as we were about to move on to the next person's presentation, Emily made a comment. "People who have only traveled domestically should probably not present. It's just making themselves miserable. Right, Mr. Harrison?" The class fell silent for a moment. Mr. Harrison responded, "Thank you for your concern, Emily. But you see, I don't feel miserable for not having traveled abroad. There are many wonderful places within the U.S., too, and it's perfectly fine not to go on trips. As long as everyone is back safe and sound after summer break, that's all that matters to me." I agreed with Mr. Harrison's perspective. If there was one thing I disagreed with, it was that Emily wasn't really being considerate. She just wanted to brag. It's not about what makes you impressive. There are many ways to spend your time, but well, if someone said, "I didn't go anywhere and just focused on studying every day," I might indeed say, "Wow." Mr. Harrison added that, making all the students laugh. Except for Emily, who looked displeased. It seemed that Emily didn't get along well with her peers. She was often condescending and bragged too much, which made it unpleasant to be around her. At least that's what everyone felt. Yet, as a survival tactic, Emily tended to befriend kind-hearted girls or boys who didn't think too deeply about things. And she acted as if she were the queen. She would boast about inviting her usual entourage to her birthday parties, and look down on anyone outside her circle by saying, "You and I are on different levels, so I won't invite you to my party." Naturally, I was one of those she looked down upon. Not that I cared. Even if I were invited, I wouldn't want to go, but I kept that thought to myself to avoid any trouble. Emily announced she was going to a private middle school, so she didn't join us at the public middle school I went to. Given that it was an affluent area, more than half of the students from our elementary school went on to private middle schools, while the rest attended public schools. For those of us who went on to public schools, Emily's absence meant one less troublesome personality to deal with. Especially among the girls, relationships could be quite complicated. Although I, being a boy, didn't fully understand, whenever I heard about their issues, I often thought, girls have it tough. I often talked to 3 girls from the public school group, Sophia, Grace, and Olivia, and they shared their experiences. Grace, Olivia, and I have been close since kindergarten, but one day in 4th grade, Emily took a liking to Olivia and tried to hang out with her. Sophia shared, "Yay, and we wanted to keep hanging out with Olivia as usual, so we invited her to play after school, but Emily threatened us, saying, 'If you invite Olivia, I'll spread nasty rumors about you. My relative is a detective, so I can find out everything about your families and make up stories.'" Grace added, On the day I was supposed to hang out with Sophia and Grace, Emily wanted to join, and when I suggested we all play together, she said, "If you don't reject Sophia and Grace, I'll spread bad rumors about them." That was troubling. Olivia continued. Hearing about the girls' troubles, I remember thinking, well, that's way too complicated. And with Emily attending a different middle school, they were relieved to be able to hang out without any issues. Surprisingly, I ran into Emily sooner than expected. Emily. It was during our high school entrance ceremony. While checking my class on the list posted near the entrance, I saw Emily Parker in the same class. Hoping it was just someone with the same name, my wishful thinking was dashed when I saw her in person. She was still strikingly beautiful but had a distinctly sharp look about her. Upon seeing me, she also muttered, "Ooh," in the classroom. Perhaps because we hadn't seen each other for 3 years in middle school, there was a certain awkwardness. I knew Emily had gone to a private middle school, but I hadn't paid attention to which one, a careless oversight. As a 6th grade boy, I had no interest in which private middle schools my classmates were attending. As for me, I didn't do well on the public high school entrance exams and ended up at a private high school as a safety option. Little did I expect to find Emily there. Emily, now an internal student, resumed her queerly behavior, surrounding herself with gentle students just like an elementary school. For a moment, I thought, this is hell, but then I figured, as a boy, I could avoid getting involved in any female drama by keeping my distance. Fortunately, I was able to focus on tennis and not worry too much about Emily, making my high school life quite bearable. Unlike in elementary school, she didn't overtly try to dominate or belittle others during class presentations, showing some maturity, I supposed. However, Emily started to encroach on my life in my 2nd year of high school. A friend from my tennis activities, Nathan, whom I got along with well, started dating Emily. Initially, when Nathan told me I had a girlfriend, I genuinely congratulated him, but my face turned pale when I heard her name. Wait, why Emily? I almost blurted out, but decided it wasn't right to speak ill of a friend's girlfriend, so I refrained from saying anything unnecessary. Nathan was academically excellent, athletically gifted, had a great personality, was good-looking, and on top of that, came from a wealthy family. Well, being a private high school, there were many students from affluent families. Both of Nathan's parents were doctors. His oldest brother was a lawyer. His sister, a university student, was studying abroad. And they lived in an area in New York known for its celebrity residents. I immediately understood that Emily was only interested in Nathan for his impressive credentials. I had overheard her saying to a friend in the hallway, "I would never date someone who is incompetent and poor. On the contrary, I don't mind anyone as long as they are rich and have a high status." I was close to Nathan because he was such a nice guy. I couldn't stand the thought of my dear friend being taken advantage of by a woman who used men for her own gain. So, I took the opportunity to tell Emily clearly, "Don't you dare use Nathan for your own greedy ambitions." Of course, she didn't take it well and responded, "Coming from an incompetent poor person like you, it's not convincing. Are you just jealous?" Her condescending attitude was unchanged. Nathan was being dragged around by Emily, paying for dates and meals, and even being told to take time off from his extracurricular activities and part-time job for her. Sure, Nathan's family was wealthy, but he wasn't the type to rely on that. He worked part-time jobs in his spare time to earn his own spending money. Seeing Nathan becoming increasingly exhausted, I suggested, maybe it's okay to break up with her, but Nathan, being kind-hearted, felt that would be wrong and ended up pressuring himself. Eventually, Nathan started to fall frequently and began missing school. I thought to myself, I knew it, and frequently messaged Nathan, who was absent from school, to check if he was okay. To my surprise, I received a message from him saying, "She broke up with me." I felt relieved when I read that. The next day, Emily was telling her friends, "I broke up with him because it's so uncool to have a boyfriend who doesn't come to school." I was disappointed by her terrible behavior. "You're the reason Nathan became ill." I was shaking with anger. But I figured out arguing with her would be pointless, as she would only say, "Coming from an incompetent poor person like you, it's not convincing," so I decided to stay away from her. Afterwards, Nathan's health improved, and he was able to return to his extracurricular activities and part-time jobs. Emily, on the other hand, was already scouting for her next high-spec handsome man and had targeted another boy, while others started to be wary of her. Unfortunately, some boys still fell prey to her. I made sure to keep my distance from Emily. Well, not being a wealthy handsome man, I wasn't her target anyway, and quietly went about my school life. Time passed. I hadn't seen Emily since graduation, and now I was 40 years old. When I heard that a reunion for our elementary school was being organized to mark our 40th birthdays, I decided to attend, hoping to see some old friends. At the reunion venue, I saw friends who had clearly aged into uncles, and we laughed about our thinning hair and graying locks. Some classmates looked much younger than their age, and it was interesting to see everyone with traces of their younger selves. Many had families and children, while some had decided never to marry. There were also those who had been through one or more divorces, showing the diverse paths life can take. After chatting with the guys for a while, I happened to talk with Sophia, Grace, and Olivia. Suddenly, Sophia said with a puzzled look, "No way, is that Emily?" Grace added with a grimace, "It's true. Despite being disliked, she came to the reunion." Olivia suggested, "Well, we don't know what she's like now. Maybe she wanted to see everyone." Then Emily, having spotted us, approached. "Hey, long time no see, Olivia, and who were those other two again? You're so forgettable I've forgotten your names," Emily said to Sophia and Grace. Sophia and Grace were visibly annoyed. As for me, she completely ignored me. I had hoped she might have become a bit kinder, but it seems my hope was in vain. That's a rude thing to say, isn't it? There's nothing to fear at a reunion that's just for one day. I decided to speak my mind to Emily and said to her, "Seeing your face after such a long time, I'm reminded again of how unpleasant you are." Emily responded with the same line. Of course, I thought to myself, I don't want to hear that from you. Then Emily shifted her target from belittling Sophia and Grace to me and said, "Weren't you the one who couldn't get into college straight out of high school? Maybe you just have a high school diploma. I always thought you had no future prospects since our elementary school days, and it turns out I was right. You probably don't make much with just a high school diploma, and your family's poor too. How pitiful. With that kind of background, you'll probably never get married, let alone have a girlfriend. Your age probably equals your years without a girlfriend, right? Hit the nail on the head, didn't I? My husband, on the other hand, is a highly educated man working for a major corporation, a far cry from you. We've always lived in different worlds. My husband is about to become a manager, given his capabilities. He might even become the president in another 5 years." I was amazed at how she could so freely look down on someone and brag about herself. I thought she might become moderately popular as a comedian if she turned her bragging into a gag. Although I thought of retorting, I decided it was more mature not to engage at the same level. At that moment, Olivia asked, "What company does your husband work for?" Emily, pleased to be asked, happily responded, "Haha, he works for Awesome Corporation. It's a very famous IT company nowadays. You must have heard of it." Olivia replied, "Yeah, I know it. It's a big company with about 8,000 employees. It's amazing he's becoming a manager there." Emily was a bit surprised and said, That's right, Olivia, you're quite knowledgeable. But I don't think he'll become a manager, I interjected. Olivia nodded in agreement beside me. Emily frowned and said, "Oh, what are you talking about? How rude. Are you just jealous? I'm starting to feel sorry for you. Just because you're undereducated and incompetent, you envy others' success." I replied, "No, I'm not jealous. I'm just stating facts. He won't become a manager, and what to do? Well, your husband will be in Brazil starting tomorrow." Emily was dumbfounded and said, "Huh?" before she started giggling. "Are you out of your mind from desperation? What kind of president talk is that? It's a funny joke, I'll give you that." Continuing to laugh, Emily found the situation amusing. I then pulled out my business card holder at that moment. No, I'm not making a joke to amuse you. I'm serious," I said as I handed Emily my business card. On the card was written, "Awesome Corporation, President and CEO, Kevin Turner." "What? Why do you have my husband's company's president's business card?" Emily exclaimed loudly. I said, "Why? Because it's my business card, obviously." Emily then said, "Kevin Turner, but your name is Kevin Carter, isn't it?" "Ah, my bad. You see, when I was in high school, my parents got divorced. I didn't want to change my last name from Carter, but after graduating high school, I took my mother's surname and became Turner," I explained. "Is that even passable?" Emily was in disbelief, murmuring, "So that's why. I thought you might have seen the name of the president of your husband's company at least once, but with a different surname. You wouldn't recognize it. My apologies," I said cheerfully. Emily still looked down on me. It's obvious I wouldn't dream of someone low-educated, incompetent, and low-spec like you being the president of my husband's company. "Maybe it's time to stop, Emily." Olivia, losing her patience, finally spoke up. "I always thought you were just lonely and seeking attention, which is why you put others down and boasted about yourself. Even when everyone disliked you, I didn't abandon you, but we're 40 now. If you can't act like a grown-up, you might end up leading a lonely life. I can't tolerate being treated badly anymore. I've reached my limit." Olivia spoke as if releasing something that had been building up inside her. "Why? I wanted to be friends with you, so I never spoke ill of you. I didn't say anything bad about you today either. So what bad things are you talking about? What limit?" Emily retorted. Olivia answered, "You didn't speak ill of me, but you insulted my dear husband, and you looked down on my important friends." Olivia responded in that manner. "Husband?" Emily asked, surprised. "Yes. Do you think I would tolerate someone calling my beloved husband low-educated, incompetent, and low-spec? I would never forgive that." Olivia, usually calm, spoke with a trembling voice filled with anger. "Thank you, Olivia." I embraced Olivia's shoulder. "We're married. We kept in touch occasionally after graduation, then started dating, and eventually got married. I've told our close classmates, but I guess I never mentioned it to you. And yeah, I didn't get into college straight out of high school, but Nathan and I started a company during our gap year, and it took off. Nathan's now the vice president of my company. As for your husband, Daniel, when it was left to the HR department, they unfortunately hired someone problematic. High education doesn't necessarily mean high performance. He's an employee that's been causing trouble for his colleagues. It's not that we want to fire him, but we need manpower in our Brazil branch, so we're sending him there. Are you planning to accompany him? Or is it going to be a long-distance marriage for you, or, like with Nathan, will you end things when it becomes inconvenient for you?" I conveyed this to Emily. Emily stood trembling, unable to utter a word. I thought she'd be shocked, but it's not like I said he was fired, and the Brazil branch offers plenty of opportunities, so it's not all bad. After pondering for a bit, Emily said in a suddenly meek tone, "I'm sorry. It was wrong of me to behave rudely without noticing you were President Turner. Please, don't say things like that and consider promoting my husband to manager." At this, even Sophia, who was listening in, exploded. "Hey, enough already. You flip your stance just because you're in a tight spot. And now you're even asking for a promotion after all the disdain. You're way too opportunistic." "I didn't mean it like that," Emily replied. "I'm only positioning my employees where they're most suited, regardless of what you say," I firmly told Emily, who then quietly left our circle, looking dejected. She mingled with some classmates for a bit at the reunion, but left early. In fact, I had already discussed the transfer to the Brazil branch with Daniel, who was considering it and hadn't decided on the date yet. Daniel was actually open to the idea of an overseas assignment, but was conflicted about his family situation, whether to go alone or bring his wife. Or, I heard this from Daniel's superior. "When I set off to Brazil tomorrow, it was genuine, and with the company needing him there, it was about time for him to make a decision." Maybe Emily would discuss this with Daniel after returning from the reunion. The next day at work, I asked Daniel's department manager, Alex, about his situation. Alex revealed, "Actually, Mr. Turner, Daniel came in this morning and said, 'I've decided to leave my wife and take the assignment in Brazil. I'm ready to go anytime.'" "All right, then proceed with his transfer arrangements," I instructed Alex. I had suspected it. Emily's selfish nature made it highly unlikely she'd accompany him to Brazil. Apparently, Daniel is getting a divorce from his wife, I was told. I froze for a moment. Had Emily refused to stay with a husband not promoted to manager and heading for an overseas assignment? It seemed likely. About a week passed. Daniel had left for Brazil to start his new role at the branch. Although I rarely spoke directly to him, being a non-managerial employee among 8,000 others, knowing he was Emily's husband had made me more aware of him. Had the divorce gone through? Or was it just a marital spat? If they were divorced, I hoped he'd submit a change in personal details for company records, among other administrative concerns. Then, an internal call from the reception came through. "A lady insists on speaking with you, Mr. Turner. She says she's an old classmate of yours," the receptionist said, adding, "She's quite beautiful." My wife is beautiful too, but the receptionist would recognize her, so this remark meant, it clicked. It must be Emily. I instructed, "Send her to the reception room and hurried over." As expected, Emily was there, glaring at me the moment she saw me. "You must have said something. What are you going to do about this?" she demanded, clearly angry with me. "Hold on, what are you talking about?" I had informed Daniel about the Brazil transfer before I mentioned it to you, and he had agreed to it. "Are you upset about the transfer? Our company policy includes overseas assignments, as stated in the employment contract. I'm sorry if this disrupts your marital life, but..." Before I could finish, Emily interjected, "It's not about the transfer." The night of the reunion, Daniel came to me, looking distressed, and asked for a divorce. "You must have told him all sorts of things about me from the past. How could you?" "Why would I? I only suggested the transfer, and he accepted it positively. I've never discussed your past with him. I've never even spoken directly with him. With 8,000 employees, I don't get the chance to talk to non-managerial staff. He must have been considering divorce for a while. I didn't even know Daniel was your husband until the reunion. So the divorce has nothing to do with me." Emily began to cry. "What did I do to deserve this? Sure, I said it's embarrassing to be the wife of a man who won't get promoted and has no benefits. But that was just my opinion. I never said I wanted a divorce. So why would he bring it up?" Emily sobbed. "That's exactly why, Emily," I told her. Emily retorted, "Fine. Everyone just wants me to be miserable," and stormed out of the reception room. I attempted to follow her, but she ran out of the company building, so I gave up. I made sure to explain things clearly to the receptionist, who was grinning. to avoid any strange misunderstandings. Half a year passed, and I gradually learned more about Emily and Daniel. According to employees from Daniel's department at the New York branch, he had been troubled by his wife's whims and considering divorce for quite some time. Daniel, a highly educated man with much pride, was worn out and lacked the spirited demeanor he once had due to being under his wife's thumb, as unanimously described by his colleagues. However, in the end, Daniel and Emily did not divorce. Surprisingly, Emily went to Brazil and lived with him. This information came from my wife, Olivia. Olivia and Emily hadn't been in touch until the reunion, but it seemed Emily had reached out to Olivia for life advice. Feeling lost after Daniel suggested divorce, Emily sought Olivia's help. Olivia listened and pointed out Emily's past missteps, letting Emily to reflect on her lack of consideration for others. Olivia told me, "I felt Emily wanted to change for the first time because she truly loves Daniel. I think her personality was shaped by a lack of affection in her childhood due to her busy parents. But she seems happy to have a family with Daniel and wants to change for the better to stay with him." Emily went to Brazil ahead of Daniel, apologized, and they reconciled. "I see. Emily has matured, facing her relationship seriously. They're doing well as a couple," I remarked. "Don't be so patronizing. Are we doing well as a couple? Have you reflected on your flaws?" Olivia teased, making me fluster. "Wait, sorry. Have I caused trouble for you with my faults? Tell me, I'll change," I hurriedly said. Olivia reassured, "You don't have any faults, Kevin. You're perfect." "That can't be right," I protested, flustered. "I must have flaws, but Olivia's kindness likely overlooks them." I reminded myself not to become complacent or arrogant. "Look," Emily sent a message and a photo. "Check out this picture." Olivia showed me her phone, displaying a smiling Emily and Daniel together. The message read, "Daniel and I went to see Rio's Carnival. They look happy together," I commented. Olivia laughed, "Kevin, happy together sounds so outdated. Don't say that in front of the younger employees, okay?" Her teasing was filled with affection. "It's okay, we're at home. We're happy together too, right, Olivia?" Smiling, Olivia replied, "Yes, we won't lose to them," and made a heart shape with her hands, laughing.